Another huge issue that is front and center for Americans voting in November, the economy, and a vital part of the embattled Keystone pipeline. Here with more, Trump economic advisor and author of the new book, Fueling Freedom, Stephen Moore. All right, Stephen, your book talks a lot about the Keystone pipeline as well as the fact that the United States apparently has its own sufficient amount of natural energy that we don't need to rely on our enemies for energy efficiency. Correct.
Well, you've got that right, Judge. In fact, if you look at, because of the shale oil and gas revolution that's happened just in the last 10 years in the United States, we now have the capacity, in my opinion, and many other scholars, within the next 5 years for the United States to become not just energy independent, but the energy dominant country in the world. That is, we can essentially be the new Saudi Arabia of the 21st century if we get this right. And that means, and by the way, I'm not talking about building windmills. We get 3 or 4% of our energy from windmills and solar power. I'm talking about our coal, our oil, our natural gas, and our nuclear power. You put those together, Judge, we can do this. And this has huge implications for our economy, because what is the number one thing we import from the rest of the world is oil. And by the way, you know where we get that oil from, Judge. We get it from a lot of the countries that are sponsoring terrorism.
Okay,
so this is a big deal. This is a big deal for our economy.
So we stopped with a lot of this stuff because they said what? It wasn't safe, it was dirty, it was bad for the environment. I mean, very quickly, I don't want to spend a lot of time on the why.
Okay, so the reason that the left wants to shut down our fossil fuel production is because they're talking about global warming and climate change. Now, look, even if you think climate change is one of the greatest, catastrophes facing mankind.
Well, the Pope thinks it is.
Well, the Pope does, but he's not exactly a climatologist. But let me say this. Even if you believe that to be true, we're not going to stop climate change by shutting down American energy. I'll give you an amazing statistic, Judge, I bet you didn't know. As we're shutting down our coal plants, and by the way, thank you so much for mentioning what's happening in coal towns around America. It is absolutely disgusting to see these plants being shut down by the Obama administration. But you know what China and India are doing? Every time we shut down a coal plant in the United States, they build 10 of them. Okay. How is that reducing climate change?
Well, clearly. But there's a political piece to it. You've got Hillary Clinton against the pipeline, the Keystone pipeline. Donald Trump is in favor of it. He gave a great speech on the economy. I know you're one of his advisors. But when you peel back the onion, it turns out that the Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad owns almost all of the rail lines in the United States that connect to Western Canada. They haul most of the crude from Canada to the Midwest and Texas. And if we had the pipeline, that would be a competitor. Here's the rub. The pipeline would charge about $10 a barrel, and BNSF would charge about 30, and the guy who is the major owner of it is Warren Buffett, the guy who is saying, challenging Donald Trump, saying, I'll give you my tax returns if you give me yours. Isn't it all about money in the end? I mean, who knew that Warren Buffett was apparently this number one Berkshire Hathaway?
You're exactly right. There is a hypocrisy factor here. You can't make this stuff up. You're right. Warren Buffett is a major shareholder in these railroads. And by the way, if you're concerned about the environment, of course we all are. Every study shows it's much safer to transport oil and gas through pipelines rather than using trucks and rail. And yet, because of these influences of people like Warren Buffett, we can't do what's environmentally sound. And by the way, that Keystone pipeline, I estimate, Judge, 5,000 to 10,000 jobs could be created. And we're talking about pipe fitters and welders and construction workers and truckers. Those are high-paying middle-class jobs this country needs.
No doubt.
We need those jobs.
Anyway, Steve Moore, new book, Fueling Freedom, Exposing the Mad War on Energy. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Thanks, Judge. I loved your opening statement. You nailed that. You're so right.
Thank you. And still ahead, my political panel is standing by to talk Trump and Hillary. Keep it here. Justice rolls on in a moment. Not on that BNSF train, though.